All right. Good morning. Good morning, Amanda. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Chris?
I am doing fantastic. So today we are here to share some great tips and resources for parents and guardians for G Suite. So if you have found yourself in a school or a school district that is utilizing G Suite for education, and your students are ultimately interacting with these tools, you may be a little unfamiliar with them. So Amanda Taylor and myself, Chris Bell, are here to share some kind of basic tips to get you started on G Suite and formerly known as Google Apps. Today we're going to highlight four components of it. We're going to first start off with the Chrome browser, and then we'll talk about Gmail and how to really manage that. Then we'll move into Google Calendar and then Google Meet. And Google Meet is very similar to what we're on right now, which is Zoom. So what we'll do is just do some introductions really quickly, and let's move it forward. I'll let you introduce yourself, Amanda.
Okay. And don't forget, you guys do have the chat box in this site, so you can also introduce yourself while we're doing our introductions. Tell us where you're from, especially we've got people from all over the country on today, and we're excited to see where you're coming from. My name is Amanda Taylor. I work for EdTech Team, and I've been a teacher since 2005, and now I get to work with teachers as a job. I'm also a mom, and Chris can share that slide next. I have two children, a third grader and a fourth grader. And we're actually in between schools right now. Oh, you got to refresh your slideshow, Chris, because I added this. There they are. There's my cute kids. They are downstairs zoning out onto iPads right now because they haven't started school yet. So I have a third grader and a fourth grader. And it's super fun being their mom. And man, this whole quarantine education thing has been hard for me, and I do this for a living. So if you guys are struggling too, we totally understand where you're coming from. Wow, look at all those places. That's so awesome. Oh, and I live in Southern California right now, but I originally am from Texas.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah,
Your picture is way cuter than
I
mine.
know.
So I am Chris Bell. I'm the CEO at EdTech Team. Former classroom teacher at the elementary level, and then also at the secondary level, and then moved into school and district administration before joining EdTech Team. And the work that we do, we support schools and districts and teachers all across the country. So we're excited to be here today. Thank you for everyone who's joining us. While you're at it, I would love to know the grade levels of your children, what they're going into or what they're currently into if you've already started school. I myself have two little guys, that's Ethan and Owen, and they are going into fourth and sixth grade. And so it's certainly a new and different school year for all of us. Even though as an educator, I feel like I have a little bit of a leg up on some things, but at the same time, the struggles of managing and juggling everything are a consistent challenge for all of us. So what I'll do is I'm going to pass this on over. Perfect. Fourth and sixth. Wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Retired teacher who's helping out the grandkids. This is fantastic. It's crazy hot here. Well, I'm in Southern California as well. We've been going through a heat wave with rolling blackouts because why not?
Yeah.
And for anyone joining from Northern California, there's a really good chance that you may have to be evacuated because of fires. So I just chalk it up to 2020, unfortunately. A little bit of lightheartedness, but unfortunately, if there were to be a Sharknado, this would be the year.
Yeah. I saw a really great shirt this week that said like 5 stars, 1 star, 2020 would not recommend. It's the best.
Ooh, that's
Definitely.
hot. 108 and power going off. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah, we had that. It was 105, and we had the power go out for a rolling shutdown. So
And the Midwest just had a horrible natural disaster. I don't even know what's going on here. I just saw like a whole bunch of destruction. So I think summer has its rough spot, and we're going into fire season, which is a whole season all its own in California.
Yes.
And I think up along the West Coast. But this is great. Tons, first, fourth, and sixth, eighth, and 10th. Got a bunch of people from Dixon, California. I saw a
Nice.
couple people from the Los Angeles area. People from Massachusetts, twins entering kindergarten. My next door neighbor has twins, and I don't know how she does it. Crazy. It's cool.
Well, let's go ahead. I will advance the slides, and you want to kick this off, Amanda?
I
Kind of
will.
the
So
highlight.
this is, I am going to try my best to speak to you as a parent and not just as, an educator. I kind of the way I help my mom and my grandma when they call me asking for technical assistance. One of the biggest questions I get from parents is like, I don't even know what G Suite is. I don't know what you're talking about when you say the word Google account. Like, I don't get it. I thought it was just Gmail. I thought Google was just a search engine. So when Google first came into being, early in the 2000s, it revolutionized the way that we search the internet. I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, there was a lot of other search engines out there. There was Alta Vista. There's all sorts of crazy stuff. That's really the only, Netscape was a browser, and Yahoo has its own search engine. But over time, Google's AI, their automatic intelligence or artificial intelligence, has been far better than any other search engine or setup out there. And then in 2006, I believe, they launched a suite of applications to also go along with the Gmail service, the email service that they had created in like 2004, 2005. So they started as a search engine, and then they developed their own browser, which we're going to talk about in a second. And then they developed a whole suite of apps. And now for most of us, if you went to school in the 80s and the 90s, which I feel like most parents and some even grandparents, like that's kind of the world where, that's technology integration started for them, is maybe late 80s, but mainly, mostly 90s, some 2000s. The only productivity suite that you had access to more than likely was Microsoft. And growing up, that is what I used in school. It's what I used in college. It was Microsoft or nothing. And then Google came in and they changed the game in the mid 2000s by producing a set of web-based productivity applications. So you'll see Google Slides, Google Sheets, Google Calendar, Google Drive. So like Google Docs is a competitor to Microsoft Word. Google Sheets is a competitor to Excel. If you have an Apple, any sort of Mac product, you'll also see Apple's version of a productivity suite. You'll see Numbers and Pages. So that's what all of those are. And typically, if you can utilize any sort of word processing application, you can use it no matter what platform you have. So don't let the names scare you. Know that it's like super basic. Docs is just word processing. Spreadsheets is just data. Calendar is just calendar. Gmail is email. And so all of those things have their space. And your Google account, your Gmail account, if you have a personal Gmail account, gives you access to all of these applications free of cost, as long as you have access to the internet. Your student, your child at school, more than likely has a G Suite account, which is why you're here. Just because they have a G Suite account doesn't mean that they have a Gmail account. Gmail is considered an application that's part of this larger suite. So a lot of schools with younger students, for example, my kids have a G Suite account at school. They do not have access to email. It's not an application that's turned on for them. The difference between their @school.org and my @gmail.com is it's an education branded account. It has certain protections. It has certain oversight. They have the ability to monitor what the kids are doing, where a Gmail account is just a private thing, right? It just doesn't, nobody's watching or in your email. They don't have control over what you're doing. So if your student has a Google account, that's what that means. And typically you're going to see the domain, which is the @whatever.org.com, that is going to match whatever their school is. Right, some districts turn it on and some don't. So questions, really briefly, if you have any questions about, like, do you understand what what it means to have G Suite? It used to be called Google Apps for Education. Google changed the name of it several years ago to G Suite for Education. There's also G Suite for Business, there's G Suite Enterprise, there's G Suite Nonprofit. Basically, some companies are choosing to utilize these applications instead of going with a more paid route, and there's lots of options that way as well. If my daughter already has the Microsoft apps, do they need to use G Suite? Is that a teacher or school preference? That's actually a really great question. Typically, if your school has gone Microsoft, then they will have a very similar setup, but they'll have the Microsoft applications. They might have Microsoft 365, something like that. Typically the school, right, district level will decide what they're going to have. And they're typically going to go one way or the other. That's not always the case. Sometimes we see schools that do both, or they're Microsoft on this side and Google on that side, and that can be confusing, but your district should be helping support you into knowing what is my kid using and how can they access it. The other question really quickly, does Google track our children's progress throughout their school career? I think Chris can talk to this more about like the safety and the confidentiality. There's a whole nother set of rules and regulations that go when you have an EDU account. You're not supposed to set up a business, an enterprise, or a nonprofit account and use it with minors. That's why EDU is its own separate beast. It's got its own separate rules and regulations and privacy things in there. What's great about as far as tracking is when my kid gets a G Suite account in kindergarten at ABC District, they will use that same account the whole time that they're enrolled. They don't get a new username and password every single year. So there is some continuity, and we see that as a benefit, not as a negative thing. Chris, can you speak to the privacy with EDU and how they protect students' information?
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, though I do play one on TV. So the biggest thing about G Suite and how it relates to education is Google takes the privacy of students very seriously because there's been a number of litigations throughout the years, really focusing on how that data is used internally at Google. So they have it really heavily segmented internally. And the other aspect and component of it is that they do not serve up ads. So they don't serve up ads within education domains or accounts. So if you have your own personal Gmail account, if you are in Gmail, you'll often see a couple of lines in your inbox that look like they might be email, but in fact, they are actually ads. On the EDU side or the education side, we don't see that. We don't see that at all. And it also, so that's one aspect of it. They're not using that student or teacher or educator information to profile and target from an advertising perspective. And then the other component of it is that they work with districts to provide them information on privacy and how important privacy is. And one of the links I'll share a little bit later as part of a collection that we'll share out does touch on the privacy component. And so making sure that the privacy is maintained for our students.
George asked a really good question. Are the shortcuts or the keystrokes similar across platforms? Yes. I've actually had more trouble transitioning from PC shortcuts and keystrokes to Mac shortcuts and keystrokes. Because I made the full transition from Microsoft to Chrome a couple of years ago, or G Suite. And there were a few things, like I remember there was a couple things in like slides and sheets where I was like, why can't I do this? But eventually you're just like learning a new way home on the road. Your brain remaps to what those shortcuts are. And then it writes itself. I honestly had a harder time transitioning from PC to Mac than I did from Microsoft to G Suite. We are actually, Selma, we're going to talk about Google. The question she asked was, in Google Classroom, how can I track if the assignment's been completed versus just turned in? We're going to show you how to do that on Thursday. So Thursday is all about Google Classroom. We're going to dive into how you can help your child as a parent without overstepping boundaries and doing their work for them. We're actually going to walk you through all of that on Thursday. So come back and join us on Thursday for really specific Google Classroom assistance. Maria asked a question. My daughter tried to log into her school email account and received a notice that the password was changed 11 days ago. I thought I just heard the passwords wouldn't change. We've reached out to the teacher for the new password. Maria, it's not that the password won't ever change. Your technology department at your school or at your district has the power to change it, and they may have just done a blanket reset for the summer, just as a like a house cleaning task. And as they start school, they'll receive all of their new passwords. So it is possible that they did reset it. What I mean more of as that account will stay with your kid. That account is not going to change. They're not going to suddenly log into their G Suite account and all of their work is gone, all of their history is gone. That shouldn't be the case. Hopefully that answers those two questions. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Google Drive. I was asked.
I got the chat.
Go ahead. Chris is going to answer some questions in the chat, and I'm going to move on and talk about Chrome. So one of the applications in G Suite is Chrome, which is actually a web browser. You can let me know in the chat, what web browser do you use? Do you even know what web browser you use? And it might be different on your phone versus on your computer. So I have chosen, and my husband does the same, we use Google Chrome everywhere. So the first thing I do when I get a new computer is I download the Chrome web browser. If you're using a Chromebook, that is the only web browser you can use. That's why they call it a Chromebook. If it was made by Apple, it would be called a Safari book. If it was made by Microsoft, it would be called an Explorer book or a Edge book or whatever they're using these days. So on my iPads, on my phones, on any computer that I use, I always download the Chrome app. Sometimes I use Safari as well because I do use a lot of Apple products. But Chrome is a browser that you can download and search the internet. The reason why I love using Chrome, and I'm going to show you this in just a second, I'm going to take over screen sharing from Chris, but Chris has to stop screen sharing first. The reason why I love using Chrome specifically, and I know you can do this with other browsers as well, but for me, this is what works well for me, is I can be logged into separate Chrome profiles. So you can see here, so on my Mac, if I go up to people, I can see these are all the people. These are all the different separate Chrome Google accounts that I have access to. So like, here's my son. So I can open up my son's profile and it doesn't intermingle at all with my children's profile. And this is really helpful. There are other ways that you can go back and forth between accounts. You can log into multiple accounts within the browser, but I love that I can save my settings. I can save my bookmarks, my password information. I don't necessarily want my child to be on my computer and like meddling in all my stuff. So I really like that I can separate out those profile spaces, and it's super, super helpful. One of the things that I would highly recommend you do as a parent is get familiar with bookmarks. Whatever bookmarks you have, it's kind of like Pinterest. If any of you guys use Pinterest, I've pinned like thousands of things, but I've never gone back and looked at any of them. One of the ways that I stay really organized is I keep my bookmarks up to date. And so this is actually my work profile. If I open up my personal profile, you can see that my bookmarks look a little different. So I've got, my basic Google apps here. I've got a folder right here for my kids with all of the things that they need for school, the Renaissance login. I've got all my adulting things, which is all my credit card websites, all my banking accounts, all of those things. So I've got all of these, and the way that I keep myself organized is by using bookmarks. I also love to use the Google Keep app. We're not really going to talk about that today, but those two things keep me fairly organized in addition to like my calendar and that sort of thing. So Chrome really enables you to have some consistency no matter what device you're on. So if I'm on my phone, Chrome knows the information across. It'll link that data. If I open up a new computer, everything talks to one another, and it doesn't matter what machine I'm on. If it's saved in Chrome, if it's saved in Drive, it's all going to look the same. Let's see. There was a question. Where did my questions go?
People tab, the People tab at the top of your Mac screen or on PC.
Yeah, so either the People tab or you've got this little circle right here. You can click on that on a PC as well, and that'll show you like where all your people are. So we're done with that one, done with that one. Okay, sorry, I'm just checking out some stuff. Another thing that I can say about, going through all of this and seeing everything, if you feel totally lost right now, you're like, girl, you told me to download the Drive app and now I don't know where you are, what you're doing. If all else fails, sit back and watch and listen. You're gonna get the recording for both this morning's webinar and this afternoon's webinar. This is maybe stuff that you have to watch multiple times, especially if this just is not a universe that you're comfortable in, right? It's like the first time you watch the Marvel movies, you're like, who is that superhero and why is he here and where did he come from? Sometimes it takes multiple passes for us to really ingest what we're doing. So don't feel like, if you feel overwhelmed, that's okay. You can watch it again, you can go through it again, and the more you watch it, the more it's gonna make sense. Okay, we are going to, let's see. I have a question over here about screen time and Gmail accounts. We're going to answer that at the end, so I'm going to hold on to that question. And then hopefully, Dave, you got your answer on how do you get the people in the list. If I want to add a person, I can go to people and I can add person. I can also do that from over here. I can go here and I can add a person here. When I do that, it's going to pop open this screen and I can type in a name. So I can say, Aiden, and then it's going to open up a whole new window. And then this is where I can say I'm already a Chrome user, and then I can log in with that new email address right here. And then it'll kind of go through this whole like login process. So hopefully that helps. How do you download Google Chrome? Sandy, that's the only reason I use Safari when I first get onto a computer. You have to download Google Chrome. If you're on a phone or a tablet, you can go to the App Store. If you're on a computer, typically you use whatever browser you have and you go search for Google Chrome and the download should be right there. If you Google Chrome, so Google Chrome, probably the first thing that's going to come up is download now. Put it right there. Yes, George, you will get you will get a link to access the recording as soon as, I think you'll get them. I think we're sending them at the end of the week. I don't know if we're sending them daily or at the end of the week. We might wait till the end of the week. That way you get all the recordings in one email. All right, so next we're gonna talk about Gmail. There are some questions over there on the side, and I promise we're gonna come back to those at the end for the Q&A. So what is Gmail? How many of you have a Gmail account? Let me know in the chat if you have a Gmail account. Chris, how old is your Gmail account? When did you get yours?
Oh, great one. Great question. So I got the super secret invite back in 2004. And so it's 16 years old.
Yeah. So I wasn't in the first wave, but back when they were still doing it by invite, I got one in 2005. And then I immediately got engaged right after that and had to make another one because my first Gmail account had my maiden name on it. Yeah. So some people have it for a long time, some people don't. And some people, I have several actually, yep. I still have friends that like they stand behind their yahoo.com email and they're not changing it. And that's fine. You don't have to use Gmail if you don't want to. But it's nice to know what it is and how to use it. So Gmail is Google's email service. I want to say it's the first thing that they made, that they put out after like Google, right, .com, the search engine. It was a big deal. And at the time, a lot of the innovations that they put into email were adopted by other email platforms. So, but it was revolutionary at the time. I don't even remember. I think Nested Conversations was a big one.
Yes.
Just the fact that I could log in anywhere and have access to my email. I didn't have to like have a program installed on my computer. Was just really, really awesome. Yeah, I've had a couple people that still have Yahoo accounts or AOL accounts, which makes me laugh. Okay, so let me show you just a couple of quick tricks about Gmail, and hopefully this can help you stay organized. Because what I hear from a lot of parents is email is overwhelming. I can never find anything. And like, how do I stay organized? So this is an account that this is not a personal account, so it doesn't have any like sensitive information in it. this is what your email account probably looks like when you first started up. You have these are called, I think these are called categories over here at the top. I don't love categories. I actually set up my settings a little bit differently. Over here on the side in the top right-hand corner, you have to do this on a computer, not on a mobile app. I can click these settings and I've got all of these options to customize the way that my email looks. So I don't actually prefer this method. I like unread first. That's the first thing I do. So all of my unread mail is at the top, and then everything that I've read is down at the bottom. And then I can go through and I can archive or delete mail as I'm done with it. So this email, for example, I can go in the trash. And then these emails here, I can mark those as read and archive them. So my goal at the end of the day is to get from whatever this number here, this inbox is to get as small as possible. I don't want any emails in my inbox. It's called inbox zero. So if you're struggling with how to get control of your email inbox, I would highly suggest YouTubing inbox or email management, strategies. The way that I do it is really personal to me and my workflow. It very much mirrors what my husband does. We've kind of traded tips back and forth. But like when I open up my mom's email and there's 4,000 emails in there, like how is she not overwhelmed? And a lot of times she talks about how she loses emails, she can't find anything, things get lost. And so whatever just like if your pantry was a mess, right? At some point you're gonna get in there and you're gonna clean it out and you're gonna figure out how to do it better. This is the time. Having an organized email is really gonna help you lower a stress level, and it's going to help you find things, especially if email is the main way that you're communicating with your kids' teachers. A really cool thing about email, or Gmail specifically, is I can label items. So I can highlight emails and I can add labels. And those labels can be colored, which is really nice. I can add a new label by hitting create new. So let's say I want, let's say this, we're gonna pretend that this email is from a teacher, and I want to label all emails that look like this. So once I'm in my email, I can go up to filter messages like these, create filter, apply, and make a label. So I can actually make a label from an email, and then it'll automatically label all of those emails. So there they are, recordings. And then I can go in here and I can change the color if I want to make it fun. And that's going to help me organize. And now any email that comes in that looks like that one is automatically going to get that label. So you could do that with teacher emails. You could do that with anything that says, whatever, USD or ISD. So there's lots of different ways to take control of your email. I could spend a whole hour just talking about email and how to organize your inbox. But again, the method that I use, the process that I use isn't always going to be right for you. What I will tell you is on your mobile device, so grab your phone if you're not watching from your phone, what email app are you using? Are you using the native one that came with your phone? Are you using the Apple mailbox? I would highly suggest that you download Gmail. If you use Yahoo, download the Yahoo Mail app. If you're using AOL, whatever you're using, Outlook, whatever it needs to be, use that app instead of the native app. It's going to help you sync your email across all of your platforms, and you don't have to check your mail twice. Whatever problem you're having with email, somebody has solved that problem, and they have more than likely made a video about it on YouTube. So we really want to, more than anything, empower you to take control, to find a way to make it organized. One of my favorite things about Gmail is this search feature. I can go up here to this search box and I can search before, and I can add a date. So anything before March 13th pretty much doesn't matter, because that's when the world crashed. So I'm gonna put March 13th, 2020, and any email that I got before then, I can highlight all of those. I can mark them as unread if I need to, and then I can archive them. And archiving in Gmail specifically just puts everything, like shoves it in a drawer so you don't have to see it, and it gets it out of your inbox. So that's another really great tip to kind of okay, great, this is wonderful, I want to organize stuff, but I have 10,000 emails. How do I get rid of some of them? If you do this little search right here, highlight all your email and archive or delete, you can get rid of a whole bunch of emails all at once. Chris, did I miss anything with Gmail? Do we have any questions?
I think we got them all.
Awesome.
Is there any other favorite tips that you would share?
Zero inbox is a big one. I know a lot of people like to put in, like they like to stream all of their email accounts into one space. I do that for 2 of my accounts, but I would never want my work account and my personal account in the same space. So I keep those 2 spaces separate, but I know a lot of people, my husband likes all of his emails to come into one place. I don't know how he does that.
I used to do that too, but I found that once I started separating off work and personal, my life got better. Because I was spending less time figuring out what email went where.
Yeah. 2 quick questions from the chat. Can an email be placed into 2 folders? In Gmail, it's called a label. And yes, you can label an email with as many labels as you want, which is really great. If I show you my personal email, I think it's kind of like a time capsule when I go down, and a lot of my labels are hidden. So many of these labels all over here on the side are so old, like so old. I think we had a camping trip here from like 2006 that I finally just got rid of the label. If I get rid of the label, it does not get rid of the emails, which is really nice. And the other question was, when you archive, where do they go? So hopefully this doesn't, like sometimes this blows people's mind a little bit. Inbox is actually a label. Inbox is a temporary space. Your mail actually lives down here in all mail. So really archiving, the only thing that it does is removes the mail from your inbox. All mail will always be in all mail. So when you archive, all it does is it takes it off the top of your desk and it shoves it back in the drawer. Where in all mail, you can see everything. So if you're looking for something, you're not actually looking for a folder called archived, you're looking for all mail. You can also go up here and search just about anything at any time. I was looking for something really obscure. I was looking for an email that contained an attachment from my mother between this date and this date. She sent me a picture of my daughter's birth certificate, and I couldn't find the email because who knows what she titled it. And I was able to run a search by clicking this button here and say, you know, from my mom, and then had an attachment here, and then between this date and this date, and it was able to narrow down, you know, the thousands of emails that she has sent me down to a very small chunk. So really, really cool ways to kind of search and find stuff. So I don't know, Chris, if you can explain, and we may have to save this question for the end, what's the difference between categories and labels? I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Johnny. I hate categories and I don't use them. So I don't speak very fluently about categories because they never end up where I want them to go. Same thing with the whole like mark as important. You can tell I don't use this inbox because I don't use that feature either. If you really want to be a nerd about it, which go for it, because almost anything is reversible, you can go into settings and you can play for a while in all of these settings. There's so many things that you can turn on and off in the settings here. I finally spent a good amount of time a few summers ago and just scrubbed my settings and figured out what works best for me because I was tired of being overwhelmed by my email.
Yeah, I would say I agree with you on the categories. I do not use categories. I have not found them to be useful. I use heavily use of labels and setting up filters to automate the labeling.
Ellie asked a question about screen time. Like I said, we're going to cover that at the end and maybe some suggestions that we have, you know, as people with our own kids. Is the filtering only available on desktop? Myra, I'm assuming you're talking about like creating a filter. Yes, there are certain things that you can't. I think I can add a label on mobile, but if I really want to do mass organization and mass searching and filter creation, you're going to need to do that on the web or like on a computer, not on the Okay, I think those were all the questions that I saw about email. I'm going to scrub the chat a little bit more, and I'm going to, oh, this is a big thing. And let me talk about this one more thing, and then you can go into calendar. The mobile app has a new Meet and Chat integration. So if you've been using Gmail for a while, you may have noticed that the app now has a little mail and Meet option, and pretty soon they're going to add a little chat option right in the center as well. So the Gmail app is getting a bit of an update, hopefully to increase that synchronicity between applications. So that's happening soon. So I'm going to stop sharing so Chris can take over, and then I'll go and check these questions, see if I missed anything.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so what I'm going to jump over to for the next little bit is we're going to talk about Calendar, and then we'll kind of touch on Google Meet. And what you're going to see over the next couple of days is kind of how all these pieces pull together and how they connect to Classroom, especially for the students, because there's a high likelihood that if your school is using G Suite, they may be using Classroom as well. And so how do we help our students help themselves? So when I go in here, just bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. And I got too much junk on my screen here, Amanda.
Yeah, you do.
There we go. All right. So this is Google Calendar, and can I just get a roll call in the chat? How many of you use Google Calendar consistently? Perfect. Oh, I love the raised hand feature. Yeah, I use Calendar for everything, and you don't want to see my calendar. If I turn my calendar on right now, there we go. That's actually a pretty good day. Some days it's even tighter and more tightly scheduled, and it's 30 minutes back to back to back to back to back. But I will tell you that it drives my day in so many ways. And so for me, I have a saying with my wife is that if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist, because if you want to book time, you've got to book time. So she has access to booking time on my work calendar, because my work calendar is the only one that I use consistently. So with that, when we look at Google Calendar, if you're familiar with it, this looks super familiar. If you're not, let's just do a little walkthrough. So one of the easy ways to ever get to Calendar, if you're ever confused on the desktop, is to use what we call the Rubik's Cube or the waffle, or whatever word you want to use to describe it. And you can find that listed under there. Click that and you're brought into here. The key with Calendar is that you have preference. You can set the preference to how you prefer. So I tend to prefer the day view, only because if I have this and I show myself the month view, I might panic. I mean, this is 16 and it's showing me all of these things. So I look ahead throughout the week, but if I'm usually living in the day and kind of living through that experience. But what I really like most about Calendar is the ease of being able to see information. So here's an example. If your student is, if you log into your student's G Suite account and you look for their courses, so if they're an elementary student, they probably have Mrs. Such and such, whatever their Google Classroom is called, you can actually start to see the assignments connected to their class. So here's an example. In Distance Learning 2020, looks like there is a question that my student needs to respond to. What problem do you want to solve? And that link, click that link and it will open up Google Classroom. And this is the teacher view. But ultimately, your student would be able to respond and have that linked in there. So every time your teacher assigns anything to your students in Classroom, there is a corresponding calendar. And so one of the easiest ways to look at it, as opposed to scrolling through Classroom, is to really look at the week view. So if there were assignments that were assigned every day with due dates, they'll all be listed here. And typically it's a calendar that can be turned on or off. So that's kind of my one quick tip when it comes to sorting and helping and visualizing, it makes it a lot easier. And we'll go into the parent and guardian views on Thursday. But one thing that's nice as well is that you can get, Amanda, I'm correct, right? You can get the calendar view as a parent guardian as well, right? Did I lose you? Pretty positive you can.
I think so, yeah.
All right. So one of the nice features of calendar is this. If I want to invite anyone or I'm invited to an event, I can add a lot of details and resources. So here's an example. We're going to plan for a webinar, Amanda. And that will be, because I have access to her calendar, she has given me access, I can look and see if she's available. Look at that, it pulls up Amanda's calendar and I go, well, that time doesn't work, that time doesn't work. There we go. And so it automatically sets that calendar up and sets it on there. And it automatically, because it's a Gmail account and because it has Google Meet connected to it now, it automatically adds that video conferencing capability, which is fantastic. If I also want to add other attachments to it, I could pull a file from my desktop and upload it, or I could select it from my Google Drive. And that inserts it. So that helps front load a conversation. It's a resource. If it's something that you are needing to review. So if your if your teacher invites you to a conference, they can attach files to it. And when you open it up, you can see it. So I'm gonna invite you, Amanda. And there it is right there. Amanda can click that link and open up a Google Meet, which we'll look at in just a second. She could join by phone if she needs to, and she could also view the resources. And if that file wasn't shared with her, it would ask me to share that file with her. Super great, easy way to organize and keep that information all in one easy to use location. One bonus feature is if I am on mobile, which I'm currently not, I'm demonstrating from a desktop, I would also see a link if there was a location added. So an example would be Team Inc. So let's say that that was added to it because it's going to be at a physical location. Then when I pull that up or Amanda pulls that up on our phone, if we have the calendar app installed, then it will automatically give me a Google map and give me turn-by-turn directions if that's what I'm looking for. So that really saves me time, also makes things a little bit easier. I really appreciate when school administrators or parents or anything send out links if we have to go to a physical location. I know it's 2020, we're probably not going to as many locations as we used to, but this allows us to have this little more seamless experience and we're not hunting for the directions. Or does anybody remember when you used to print off MapQuest, print off those directions? Or if we're really older, like myself, you had Thomas guides, and invariably you always had the missing page for the place you needed to get to. So it was kind of a hunt in the dark.
You know, even back then, I wanted to be able to, like, don't tell me how to get out of my neighborhood. Like, I got the first 5 steps down. I just need, like, the last page. A quick question.
Sure.
Somebody asked, and so if you could click on that plan for webinar space again,
Sure.
or right there. Somebody said, well, what if Amanda doesn't want to come to your meeting? We actually had this problem yesterday. Chris booked a time, but he didn't realize that I had travel. I was actually physically going to a meeting, not just sitting down at my desk, and I wasn't able to attend. So I was able to hit no on the invite, and then I was able to tell him why I couldn't make that particular meeting. So you can see when he clicks on it, on that particular meeting, it says 1 person waiting. So it says 1 guest, 1 waiting. That means I have not responded on my end that I want to come. So on my calendar invite, I have a yes, no, maybe. Do you have a half invite that you haven't accepted, Chris, or do you want me to make one so they can see what it looks like on your
Oh,
end?
can I just click over to your calendar and do it? I'll
Uh,
pull it.
yeah, it's right there. You can see it. It's overlaid.
Hold for webinar. Oh, there we go. So it's in white. It's a little bit different. So that tells the viewer, that you either haven't accepted the invite, and then you say no, and it would scratch it out. Look at that. Oh, Amanda's not going to join me. Thanks. I'm very used to that. Or maybe she says maybe I'll join. Or the other thing is, this is the best. You know, that time doesn't work for me, but this time does. And say, hey, I forgot to add in my doctor appointment or whatever, right? And then proposal, and then I get an email notification that says, hey, would you like to make that change? And I would then accept it. So this gives us a little bit of flexibility where things are not so fixed. And let me hide your calendar so you don't have to see that. You can see on the little icon there, that means that Amanda has suggested a new time. Let me review that proposed time. I go, yeah, that totally works. Okay, done.
Yeah.
And she gets a notification that it's been rescheduled.
As Chris mentioned, the only reason he can see my calendar is because we work together and we have cross viewability. Like, we have set that up in place in settings where we can see each other's calendar in the domain that we have. So if you happen to be working at a school district, or you're working at a company and you guys are using Google Calendar, you may have that option turned on as well. I have gone into my personal calendar and added my husband as a can view all calendar events. So at any time, if he's like, are you available on Thursday? He has access to my calendar. And my husband and I work in a very similar way as Chris and his wife. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. And I have missed a couple of lunch dates and appointments because I forgot to add it to my calendar. I have so much going on in my brain. And I know you guys do too, as parents, especially if you're working parents, or even if you're not. If it's not on my calendar, it does not exist. And I've been called a calendar freak occasionally because I will book whatever on my calendar, and I'm okay with that. You can call me with names all day long. At least I know where I'm supposed to be and what time I'm supposed to be there. Another thing that I use for personal reasons, Wednesday, tomorrow afternoon, my husband has to take our 2 kids to the pediatrician. He knows where the pediatrician's office is, but I've gone ahead and created a calendar event. I've added the location of the doctor's office just in case, he's somewhere weird and he forgets how to get there. He won't. I've also added a list of questions and a list of things that we need from the pediatrician while we're there. I can't expect him to remember all that information. I mean, he might be able to, but I've added in the description there, don't forget to get their vaccination records. Don't forget to get XYZ. Don't forget to ask him about blah, blah, blah. And so I was able to add all of that in there, and then any other background information. And so he sees what I see. This was really helpful when our daughter was little and had massive amounts of doctor's appointments and we could never remember one from the other. But even now, it just makes things really easy. It's visibility on all sides. We really, really like it. Kim, we are recording everything. You're going to be able to see the recording later. Somebody added, there's a couple questions that I want to go back to. If I'm using Apple Calendar, does it automatically sync to Google Calendar? And I don't know if the synchronicity is any better than it was a couple of years ago. It's not the best because they don't have to talk to each other. And so sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, that's your cousin, but that doesn't mean you're friends. Sometimes it works better than others. I have been able to migrate my whole life away from those native apps, and my organization has benefited from it. If it's something that you really want to use, and I have friends that are like, no, I like my iCal, it works really well for me. I know there's a way to sync the 2 across. I'm not an expert at it, but we might be able to find you some resources for that. And then the other question was, once you add a person to your G Suite where their calendar appears an option under My Calendars, not necessarily. So when I add, for example, if I add my son as a profile, it doesn't necessarily give me access to his calendar. What I would have to do is go into his calendar and make sure that that calendar is shared with me. And so I don't know if Chris, if you can show, like if you can just go
Settings and sharing.
You just go to settings, and then down at the bottom, share with specific people, and you can type in there, and you can add somebody that way.
Like that.
Yeah.
And you can give them permission to only see your free or busy, see all event details. So if it's your child, you want to see everything. Make changes to events. So there's a scaffolding of permissions, right? From only knowing whether you're free or busy, all the way to making changes and updating the permissions. I'll remove myself from this calendar. There you go.
Another really great thing that I've seen with calendar, like my kids' school has a calendar that they have made that has all of their like standing events, and they've shared the public link with all parents. So they posted it on their website, and that's what that get shareable link is right there. So if they've shared, and you can ask them, do you guys have a shared Google Calendar that you can give us? And then that is on the side, and then I can turn it on and off. I can show you that, or I can add a screenshot to the resources that we're going to send out.
Hold on one second. Let me see if I can paste that in there.
Can you link?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. If those are publicly available. So sometimes it'll show a very, very few things. It really depends on the settings for that calendar.
And Holly, I think this kind of answers your question as well. She says, I don't normally use Google. I have downloaded it to my PC. If I have 2 children to see 2 different calendars, do you have to log into their Google Calendar separately? You only have to log in once to their calendar, so you can share it over with yourself, and then you'll be able to see everything. So the very first thing I did when I started at EdTech Team almost 3 years ago is I got into my calendar and I shared it with myself and I shared it with my husband. Because that's what he needed to see. So that would be the very first thing that I would do. I would get in there, share it with the parent, or there's a small chance that that's blocked by your district. If you get like an error message, then there are certain domain settings that they have in place that may not be allowable. You'll just have to kind of play with and see. If nothing else, you should be able to access the calendar that's provided by the Google Classroom that their teachers create. Every district makes different choices. Please don't go to your district and be like, these people that I saw, so that you should see. Every district has to make the choices that are best for them and their student body and their parents. We have a school district down in San Diego that is basically a court-run district. It's all kids that are wards of the state. Their permissions are super tight. Like, you can't share anything outside of their domain, and it's for the protection of the children. So every district has to make the choices that are best for their staff and their students based on, you know, what they're dealing with.
All right, that is kind of the super lightweight overview of calendar. There's a lot of settings that you can dig into, and if you ever want to learn more, you go into the settings, and this allows you to really customize it in lots of ways. So for example, if you also have friends in far places, you could set a secondary time zone and it would show up in your calendar. So with that, one thing I would go back and say is, let me see if I could do this without, let me pull it up. Okay, here's an example. So if I receive an email in my inbox from a person, I can actually create an event directly from Gmail. And what that will do is it will create the event. And this is a pro tip. And I'm gonna actually get rid of them, and I could say Amanda. And so Amanda gets all this information. She gets a portion of the email. If there are file attachments, it'll attach. And there you go. And so this is a quick time-saving measure. I could do that again, do that directly from Gmail, create event, and there you go. The other thing, Amanda, I don't know if you showed this, but the sidebar typically in Gmail should show up. If it's not, it's under settings. And then I can pull my calendar up side by side with my inbox. And so it saves me time from having to jump applications, and I can go, yep, I'm available at 5 today. So just a couple of quick time saving.
On the web app.
Yeah, on the web app, okay, I'm going to, for our last little bit here, I'm going to transition over to Google Meet. One of the things that Google Meet does is it gives us the ability to launch webinars. Let me switch my head view here. Let me go Zoom and view. Oh, I guess I can't. Maybe I can't. I thought I could do this, Amanda. Thought I could go with my little headshot view, but I guess it's not going to give me the capability to do that.
Because I'm in this call with you, I think you have to be by yourself.
You know, that's no fun.
I know.
Okay, so I will pull it up. So Google Meet, your child may be receiving access to Google Meet a couple of different ways. And so the first may be in their school calendar if they're not using Gmail. So they may be adding a Google Meet to link or potentially a Zoom, depending on the platform that they've chosen. Meet is integrated with G Suite, so it makes it a lot easier for everybody. Click Join with Meet, and what this does is it takes us to a waiting room, and it'll tell me, you know, what my audio and video capabilities are. Mute my mic so that it doesn't do that, and I can then click Join Now. Now, if your student is entering from a Google Classroom, it would be slightly different. And so let me go into classroom.google.com and pull up a class. And all right, generate meet link. This is the teacher backend. Okay, save. And so what your students would see in the header of the Google Classroom is three things: the title of the course, the teacher's class, and they probably did a nice Bitmoji classroom header since that was very popular this summer. There's a class code if your student doesn't yet have the class code, but most of the time they do by this point. And then there's the link. And if they click that, when the teacher has made it active, they can enter into the Google Meet, and it looks like this. Ooh, that's a double view there. So so when we get into Classroom and we start to see, Amanda, are you able to see where my cursor is, just so I can?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna do my best to walk you through this. Normally I like to roll around with a floating head, but it only works when I do it in Zoom and Meet. So the meeting details, the controls are down below. And so one of the key things is the mute button for the mic. The teacher cannot unmute the students, and that is done for privacy reasons. And similarly in Zoom, I think it's also a similar function. But the recommendation is often that the mic is off, and in so many cases, not requiring the camera on. Just kind of depends on the situation and the circumstances. So mic on or mic off, video on, video off. And if I need to leave or my student needs to leave, I can click Leave Call. Now, when I am over here, I have additional functionality. So if my student needs additional supports in the form of captioning, the captioning is provided by Google's AI. And so artificial intelligence, and it is only on your student's device. It is not being projected by the teacher. It is not being, oh, because my mic wasn't on, it is not being projected by the teacher. It is very much on a one-sided screen. So I see it. If Amanda turns it on her side by clicking turn on captions or turn off captions, she'll see those as well. Why is that important? Well, it's meeting the needs of students, and you may have a student that needs to see the words, and you can tell it's pretty good, and it's an opportunity to provide additional supports for anyone who needs it. As we have entered into COVID-19, obviously it has continued to highlight disparities in abilities, and so providing other mechanisms and supports I think is critical. So Google has a lot of features that will be coming out, including translation of captions and some other tools that'll make it easier for the teachers that are supporting your children to be able to better meet their needs in a live synchronous environment. Up here, they would see all of the students listed in there. They cannot chat back and forth. That's something to be aware of. It is really just a larger chat function. So there is communication. teacher can post questions in there, and there are more features coming in that should be rolling out here by Google that'll have the ability to thumbs up, thumbs down, the ability to break off into breakout rooms. So if a teacher wants to do small group reading, can split some students off and go join them, or if there's a teaching assistant or a resource specialist on the special education side, they can provide those supports, which is awesome. The other thing to really know about this is your student won't have the record meeting capability most likely, but there are layout functions. And mine is set to auto, but tiled gives us that nice big tiled view. But if the teacher's teaching, I always suggest that you make sure that spotlight view is highlighted, because if there are a lot of people in here talking with me, it's going to keep bouncing back and forth, and you want to be able to see the full screen. And also pin a screen. And so there we go. So if the teacher is presenting something, your child could pin the screen and it will stay up there so they can see exactly what's being demonstrated. The other things, I think that's it. Amanda, what would you add to kind of the overview of this?
I would add that you know, sometimes you get on a different tab, or where did it go? I can't find it. Anytime your camera is being used, you guys can see the little red dot on the tab. That is letting you know that the camera is engaged, or the microphone is engaged using that tab. It's the same on an iPad. So if you have an iPad and you're in Meet and then you get out of Meet because you're going somewhere else and you're like, crap, how do I get back to the Meet? There's always going to be some red indicator or some sort of light that's going to be like, hey, because it's a privacy issue, right? If all of a sudden Meet was running and you were like, oh, I didn't realize I was being recorded, or I was being, you know, microphoned or whatever. I have a webcam that I use instead of my like built-in camera. And anytime it's active, it's blue. It's like the little blue eye of, you know, whatever that eye is from Lord of the Rings. When it's glowing blue, it means that it's active and it's on. So I can look at Chris's screen really quickly and see that that's where Meet is active. A couple of other small things, like if sound is a problem, if your microphone's not working, your mute button is really important, is right there. I can also see that there's noise happening in Chris's screen because you see the little sound bar moving up and down. So that tells me that there's sound going there. If it wasn't sound, I would see that little mute button there. Two things to check. If you're in and it's not working, refresh your tab is always a good start. Sometimes the tab is muted. Can you show them so if you right click, this is on a computer, if you right click the tab up at the top where Meet is, there's a mute site. So sometimes that gets turned on. You don't even realize you did it. You can also pin the tab. Pinning a tab is different than bookmarking. It actually like takes your tab and it pushes it all the way to the side. And then your kid can't accidentally close it, which is really helpful. The last thing to know that if you've plugged in headphones, typically it auto connects. But if it doesn't, there is settings underneath the three dots where you can adjust what microphone and what speaker you're using. So it's all there. You just kind of have to know where to click and how to adjust. Personally, when my kids are on either a computer or an iPad doing school, I have headphones. I was able to buy $12 headphones on Amazon that have a built-in microphone, and I make them wear headphones. And for them, the over-the-ear headphones are more comfortable than the earbuds, although my son thinks that earbuds are way cooler. And that helps, you know, because I've got two kids and their videos are going and they're chatting and they're talking. We're on video calls at the same time. It's all very much going on. And so those microphones and headphones are really, really helpful. Especially my poor husband who's downstairs with them is like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to conduct a business meeting. And our kids are like doing whatever with school today. So those are probably the two big things that I would show. There is a chat. I know Chris said they don't chat with each other. There's no private messaging chat. Your kids can't secretly message back and forth like I can do that in Zoom. They can't do that. Chat is public for everybody to see. So if they're like, hey dude, what's going on? Everybody's gonna see that chat, not just the person that they think they're talking to. So, and the chat can be recorded. When the Meet is recorded, the video is recorded and the transcript of the chat is recorded. Unfortunately, the captions are not recorded at this time.
Yeah, unfortunately not, but I have a feeling that's gonna come. I think the biggest the biggest challenge right now for all of these platforms is live captioning. Live captioning that is part of the system, and not pre-planned captioning.
It's an, I mean, it's an accessibility thing. Can you show really quick, Chris? Somebody was asking, we mentioned in the chat that you can add a Zoom link to a calendar event. Can you actually show them the 2 places that they could put it?
Sure. So there's a couple ways you could do it. If you have integration with Zoom, there is a way to do that. Or I
usually put it in the location or in the description.
Yeah, so either putting the link to here, so an example would be, let's just say, we'll call this a Zoom link, whatever the Zoom link is, put it there, or down below here. And that way it's in a couple of different places. And usually when you set up a Zoom link, if you are setting up a Zoom link, it will give you a whole bunch of information, including phone numbers and call-ins and all these things. And so often I'll just copy that over and paste that in if I'm setting up a Zoom. And I think there's even, if I go back to here, there is integration. If you have add-ons in Gmail on the web, you can actually add Zoom as an add-on.
Oh, I haven't done that yet.
And it will allow you to create and integrate and make these things a little bit faster. Because nobody has time for all this little back and forth, especially if we're supporting, kids at home and all the other things that are going on. So I'm going to stop sharing. What other questions do we have? Can you save Zoom links from ClassDojo? That I don't know.
So I'm assuming you mean that they have shared the link to the Zoom in ClassDojo? Yes, you can save, whether you're saving it as a website or whether you're saving it to a clipboard somewhere. I love Google Keep. Google Keep is integrated into the G Suite. It's like a really advanced note-taking / sticky app. And I love that it can be shared. I can share a note with my husband. I can add text boxes. I can do all sorts of really cool, not text boxes, check boxes. A lot of times I'll use that as a place where I'll paste information that I might need later. It's not a Post-it note. It's not going to get lost on my desk. Oh, the other thing, would you mind showing, Chris, or I can show it, how to make a bookmark?
Go ahead and you show it. I'm going to grab the Wakelet link.
Awesome.
That has a lot of resources that we can drop in here.
Yeah, I will share my screen and show you guys how to bookmark. Somebody also asked, and I did answer it in the chat, how do I get those cool colors? Because you can see that I've got all my themes are different colors. So for example, if I'm going to my school's website, so this is my district's website. This is a local school district near us, Saddleback Valley Unified. So if I open up this district website and I want to, they utilize a tool called Saddleport. That's where all of the kids log in. You log into this one place and then it gives you all the logins you need. There's also the parent portal. So let's say I've got this parent portal. A lot of districts have a parent portal. So let's say this is my parent portal and I want to bookmark this page so I can come back to it later. This bar up here, this is called the Omnibox, which is a super fancy word for URL bar. So this bar up here is the Omnibox, and at the very far end of it, there's going to be a star. We actually teach young kids to wish upon a star, and when they click that little star, it turns blue. And then here's the cool part, is I can change the name of this to, say, Parent Portal. Parent Portal, I can name these bookmarks whatever I want. And you can see I have a whole bunch of folders on my bookmark bar. I don't want it to be on a folder, I just want it to be on my bookmark bar. So Parent Portal bookmark bar, and then there it is right there. And then from there, if I'm on the web, I can actually click and drag and I can move that bookmark wherever I want it to go. I can drop it into a folder. If you want to, you can always go to the 3 dots over here in your Chrome settings and go to bookmarks. There's a bookmark manager, and this is where you can hyper organize, mass delete, and really clean up all your bookmark bars. A lot of people don't realize that your bookmark bars, you can name them whatever you want, or they can have no name. You have power over all of these things. Most of people don't even realize it. When you purchase headphones for Google Classroom sessions, do they need to have mics in them? I prefer, yes, that they have the mic. It just helps with directionality, especially if you've got more than one kid and you've got a noisy house. They don't have to. You can, most devices have a built-in microphone these days. It's really rare if they don't. But I prefer to buy the ones like fake gamer headphones that have, you know, the earbuds and the thing. And don't forget, I don't actually have mine laying next to me, but most phones these days come with a set of earbuds. You could totally use the built-in or the default Apple headphones that you get sent. The only downside is if you have a newer phone, they have the wrong connection at the bottom. Okay, so those were 2 questions: how to make bookmarks, and then how to, oh, and then the Chrome Web Store, I can show that too.
And I've added the links into the Wakelet collection that I shared. So those are, so everyone will have access to how to set up bookmarks, and also how to sync your calendar.
Oh, this was the other thing. How do you create a folder? So for me, I actually have an external mouse attached to my, because I'm on a desktop right now. Right click is a really popular button. If you're on a laptop or a Chromebook, it might be a 2-finger tap. If you don't know how to do a right click on your device, I highly suggest you look it up. How to do a right click on a laptop or whatever. There's different, it took me weeks to figure it out on a Chromebook, but that's where all like the hidden menus are. So when I right click on the bookmark bar in any open space, I can add a folder here, and I can say school stuff. And then now I have this new folder, and then I can drag and drop here. If dragging and dropping is not easy for you, then just go to the bookmark manager and you can do all of that from the bookmark manager as well. Yeah. Yes, Google Keep, Darla, syncs across all devices. It's attached to your Google login. It's amazing. So I go to Keep right now, which is bookmarked. I actually use it more on my personal account than I do my work account. So here's all of mine. I have here's my grocery list. This is like our standing, we must have all of these things at all time. So I have this shared with my husband, and I can kind of check off. I actually learned this from Chris. I can check off what we have or uncheck what we do have, whatever. I have some journal stuff. These are all of my pinned Keep things here. And then down here, I've got all sorts of like random stuff that I know it's there and it's great for me. And then this looks exactly the same on my phone as it does here. So I'm constantly going back and forth between my 2 Keep accounts. Really, really, really great. The invite is in the body of the email with the Zoom meeting link, not in calendars. So do I need to create an event if I want to see it in calendar? Loretta, that's if you want a calendar. So let me show you this. If you're on Gmail, so let's say, actually I have a great example of this because Lauren sent us an email about this particular meeting. So Maria, Google Keep is, so on an iPhone, you have the Notes app, right? Everybody understands the Notes app, or like right? Google Keep is Google's version of that. So it's a way to have digital sticky notes or digital to-do list. Basically, it's the digital version of a notepad or a notebook. And what's great about it is it has a mobile app, or I can access it on the web, and I can share a note with specific people. So it just kind of increases, it's like Post-it notes on steroids. Not everybody enjoys using it, but I do. And like I said, I use it more for personal stuff than I do work stuff. So here is an email that Lauren sent me about today, because we're using Zoom today. So in my email, this is actually a pro tip. I can go up here to the 3 dots and I can say create event, and I can actually create event, and it'll include all the information in the email in the body of the description for the calendar event. So this is scheduled. It doesn't always like auto do the time and date. So this is, this one's for 3 p.m. So I would need to adjust the time here to be, this is this afternoon's webinar. So 3 p.m., make sure that this is today, and then I can hit save, and it'll automatically create a calendar invite from that email. So all the information I need is right here. The link is here, everything. And that's like a super quick way of making calendar invites. And you can see here's all of the events that Chris, oh, that one's actually mine. here's all the events that Chris invited me to. All right, what other questions do you guys have? Anything else? Do we as parents have to apply Zoom on our kids or just the school? I think, Jennifer, you're asking about paying for it. If the school is choosing to use Zoom, then they're probably paying for the upgraded features. You should, as a parent, should not be required to organize that.
Yeah,
And there might be some, everybody's gonna have a different opinion. I feel like it's perfectly acceptable to know and have your child's username and password. You may not get it from the school, but that's the first thing that I asked my son. We were really fortunate when COVID hit and all the kids came home. They sent home a little cheat sheet for each kid that said like IXL login, username, password. Their Renaissance Accelerated Reader username and password. All of the things that they needed, they put all of those passwords and usernames on one page for us. So we had access to it. I made a digital copy because that's just how our life runs. But that's one of the first things that I would get. I don't want to be in my kids' stuff. I don't want to be doing work for them. That's not why I have it. I just want to have visibility and be able to see what they see. Not all parents feel that way. Not all districts feel that way. It's really a choice if you want full visibility into what they're doing. And then one of the big questions, thank you, Ellie, I was just getting to that, is this screen time question.
Yeah.
So this was her question, and Chris and I will do our best to answer it. And then we'll wrap up for you guys. My kids have Gmail accounts in G Suite from school, and my problem is screen time. Since the school is the administrator, my kids have learned if they sign in with their school accounts, they will have unlimited internet access, although filtered, but I cannot use any app such as Family Link to control screen time. Yeah. I've approached the school a few times, but they cannot do anything. How do I solve this problem?
Are you gonna look at me, Amanda?
I can tell you how we solve it. We have younger children. Chris's oldest is a little bit older than my oldest. My oldest is only 10. We have device-free time in our house from 4 to 7. All devices get turned off and they get put away. They physically cannot have a device. Our kids don't have phones yet, but that would include their phones. The only device they can use is Google Home. So they can go play music in the garage. If they want to listen to an audiobook, we'll allow that, but that's the only thing that they can use at that time. So that's honestly how we handle screen time, is we physically remove the devices from them. I know that's harder with older kids because they have cell phones possibly. There's also ways that you can control screen time with your internet itself. Yes. And not attached to the account. So maybe something, I think Disney has, what is it called? Do you know what Disney's thing is called?
Yeah, I was drawing a blank on it on their system. I forget what it's called.
But it's actually attached to your router. Like it's attached to your internet, not necessarily.
Circle, it's Circle.
Circle. So I think that, and we need to think, it causes a lot of issues for us. Emily, that's why we uninstalled it, because it was causing issues. And I kept getting websites that were blocked. And I'm like, I am a super admin. I have all access. Stop blocking my stuff. Yeah, but Circle, it's very similar to the question we get from teachers about classroom management and digital citizenship. Sometimes if you don't have the foundation set, and kids are going to try every way to break all the rules, it's something that expectations have to be in place, restating those expectations. When our kids were little and they were first getting onto devices, my husband's like, they know the rules. They don't. They do, like they know them. They don't know them because they are children. And they don't fully develop those frontal lobes, which gives them fully reasoning capabilities, right? And so I know I'm not supposed to eat that cookie, but if mom's not watching, I'm gonna eat the cookie, right? So it's so hard, restating expectations, having consequences when expectations are broken. And it's not always take the device away, because unfortunately their device is often a learning tool. That's like saying, because you drew on the wall, I'm taking away all your pencils. but you still have to write. You still have to utilize that tool. So how do you develop that culture in your family? There's no easy fix to it. And we're learning that as we go. I feel like we made a lot of mistakes with our kids really young as far as what they were able to access on YouTube, and we're paying for those mistakes now. But it's tough. Chris, do you have any words of wisdom there? As a parent, your kids are a little, or your older son's a little bit older.
No, it's a constant struggle. So we do try to restrict, the time that they can zone out in front of the device. We're in full Fortnite mode in our house. So, it's they want to get off Fortnite and go right to YouTube. And so really it's about that balance. And we've gotten the tracking systems, and unfortunately we're still at that point where we had things scheduled so it would automatically shut off at certain times of the day. But now we approach it manually. And I dropped a link into the chat because we use Google Wi-Fi, their mesh network across our house. And it gives me the ability to group their devices. So they have I have their school computers grouped into one group, and then I have any other devices into a separate group. And so I can turn both on, one off, both off. So it gives us a little flexibility, and there is no easy answer. I do know that in the spring we were much more open to having the boys do their work in their rooms at their desk, but we're finding that in order for them to be more productive, we just got to put them out in the open and the dining room table.
You know what's funny about that? So I'm a millennial, and I fully, totally claim that status. I'm an elder millennial, right? Born in the mid 80s. But I had a computer all through high school. Like, I think I got my first computer when I was in 4th grade. So I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I was typing book reports when most teachers didn't even have computers at school. So my parents had this problem when I was in high school, because I would stay up late, and I would stay up late on my computer. We didn't have YouTube back then. We didn't have anything fun on the computer, but I would write emails. Whatever I could do, I would play video games because I was a nerd child. And one of the things that my mom would do anytime I crossed boundaries or didn't respect, her rules or her authority or whatever, she would move the computer from my room and she would put it back into an open space. And I remember that struggle constantly going back and forth. Back in the day, the worst thing your parents could do is take your phone out of your room, right? Did you ever have your own private phone line? That was a big deal, right? For me, it was anyways. But it was like, if I catch you up past 10:30 again, because you need your sleep, we're going to take the computer out of your room and we're going to put it back in the living room. And I hated it because then I had to share it with everybody. If it was in my room, then it was mine. If it was in the living room, I had to share it or I had to see it. That is a rule. We're about to upsize our house instead of downsize. We're about to get more space. And my husband and I have talked about that. Do we let the kids work in their room and have some privacy? Nope. And we're even trying to decide, do we even want them working upstairs in the bonus room that we have? Are we going to set that up as like their office? Or are we going to force them to be downstairs with us? I think we're going to try with the office first, where they can help keep each other accountable. One of us will be up there, but like you can't, it sucks. It's hard. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but you can't give them too much benefit of the doubt.
So. All right. I think I have to jump out of here. If you saw my calendar, I'm now double booked.
I think we answered all the questions. Zelma asked, can you get Google Keep from your Chromebook? Yes, you can. Google Keep is a web-based app on any computer. You just go to, oh, that's what I was going to show. Let me show one thing, Chris. You can go, and then I will shut this down.
Okay.
Let me show this really quickly, and I already have my screen up. How do you get to all these things? How do I get to Gmail? How do I get to Drive? All of Google's applications have a naming structure. So I can go to drive.google.com and it's going to pull up Google Drive. I can go to Gmail. I can go to docs.google.com. I can go to keep.google.com. But you also have the power of the waffle. The waffle is this little thing right here. This is your Google Apps menu. We call it the waffle. It's a really common term in education. Some people call it the 9 dots. If I click on the 9 dots, I see all of my applications right here. And you may see stuff that you've never even heard of before. Some of these are Google apps, things that Google has created, and some of these are like third-party apps. So like MailChimp and Loom App and Cloud Lock, those are all third-party apps, but Google Classroom and all of this stuff up above, this is all Google apps. So play around with that and see what you can find. Okay, and I think, oh, if Google sends home a Chromebook, can you transfer Chromebook links to a Surface Pro? Absolutely. What I would do is I would log into your student's Google account on the Surface Pro. You should be able to download Chrome onto that device, and then all of their stuff should kind of auto sync that way. How do you get to your kids' drive? There's two ways, Darla. The first way is to, you know, you can go over here and you can add another account. That is not how I would do it. I would actually go through the process of adding a profile. So for example, if I open up my son's profile here, change it back, and I am in my son's account. Let me change this screen a little bit. There we go. On this Google startup page, I see my little apps menu right here, but I could also type in, this is my son's account, right? Remember, so I've got his little account right here. I can type in drive.google.com as well, and his Google Drive is gonna pop up for me. And I know I'm in his account, A, because I see all of his schoolwork, but also because I see his little profile right here. And this is his personal account. I don't have his school accounts on my computer right now. Yeah, routers have apps and different things that allow you to adjust screen time based on the internet. Now, some of you, I saw a couple people here from Los Angeles. If your student has a fancy iPad and there's Wi-Fi in the iPad, then they might be able to override your Wi-Fi settings. You just need to be aware of the technology that they have and what they're allowed to do with it. All right, anything else? Anything else that I can do to help you guys or answer questions? Ellie, just to clarify, I do not need to sign in and out when switching accounts, just to add people. Yes, yes, and occasionally, and I've only noticed this on this computer, unfortunately, every once in a while when I log in, it'll say paused right here, and it'll force me to re-log into the account, which is kind of annoying. It never happens for my kids' accounts. Sometimes if you haven't used an account for a really long time, it might ask you to add their password again. But for the most part, if you're syncing your accounts, it shouldn't do that. That's a great question. No, Darla, their Google Drive won't overwhelm. Zelma asked a question. I'm going to answer it really quick, and then Darla, I'll go back to yours. The 3 p.m. session is a repeat, but it's a live repeat. So you might get a different flow. You might hear the same information in a slightly different way. So if you feel like you need reinforcement over what you just learned, feel free to join us at the afternoon session. It's 3 p.m. Pacific, I think, and we'd be happy to have you again, and you can see all of it again. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the second one will be better. So Darla, no, the Google Drive won't overwrite. So let me show you right here. So I actually am logged into more than one account in this profile. So you can see I have these 2 different ones here. I can actually go to, and I can switch back and forth. So they are different. The problem is sometimes when you're logged in like this, where you're logged into multiple accounts and you're switching back and forth, sometimes when I open up something in my drive, the profiles get crossed and it's like, no, you don't have access to this. So sometimes that happens. That's why I create separate profiles for all of my accounts instead of log into them all in the same place. Hopefully that makes sense. Having separate Chrome profiles just keeps everything nice. It's like having little dividers in your drawers instead of just letting all the silverware mesh together. Yeah. And it can be a little overwhelming at first, but YouTube is full of ideas and solutions. If you're having problems with something, Google also has a really great, robust help center as well. That's where I learned a ton of stuff. What do you mean by Google Drive? This is the only thing in all of this that still confuses me. Okay, Nicole. So when you have a G Suite account, you have access to all of those applications, right? We talked about that at the beginning. Let's see if I can pull it back up. Here's my presentation. Na, na, na. My computer's been running really slowly today. And oh my gosh, it's so hot in Southern California. which is sad because I'm from Texas and it's super hot in Texas. Okay, so here's all the applications that come with your G Suite account. When I say profile, I mean, it's like you're building a house with a different, so profile, account, G Suite account, email address, those are kind of all meaning the same thing. One thing to know is that your G Suite account, your email is your G Suite account. So even if your students don't have access to email, they still have their Google account. It looks like an email, but it doesn't necessarily give them access to email. So I hope that makes sense. G Suite, these are all of the applications. Google Drive is Google's version of like My Computer. It's your filing system. Yeah, it's not a physical thing. So like if I was on a computer, like I'm on my Mac, let's say I wanted to go to my files, I would go to my Finder and here's all of my files as soon as the screen pops up. Here's all the files that live on my computer, right? All of these files. I have downloads and recents and, you know, my iCloud and all of that. Google Drive is Google's file storage / management system that's in the cloud. What I love about Google Drive is it's cloud-based and you get to it with your Google account, whether that's a personal Gmail account or a work-based account or a school account. So whether I'm on my phone, on this computer, on my iPad, or any one of the other devices that we have in the house, as long as I know my username and my password, I can access all of the files that are stored in that space. What's funny is the one thing that I pull up the most often on my phone is my Christmas list. On my personal account, I have a spreadsheet. I have a Google Sheet that has all of my, I could go to contacts and have it all there, but that's the one place where it's shared with my husband. It's also shared with my mom, and we update that. It's like my address books. Instead of having a physical address book like my grandma had, I keep it on a Google Sheet. G Suite is not a single app that you install. So if you're looking at mobile, it's probably a family of applications. If you're just getting started, if you have Gmail, if you use Gmail for your email service, I would download the Gmail app. If you have a student that uses G Suite, I would download Google Chrome, which is the browser. I would download Google Drive, which is the storage, and maybe Google Classroom and Google Calendar. Those are probably the ones that I would start with. Yeah, it's huge. And some people are like, you know, it's hard to kind of transition and kind of rethink that space. But stuff in the cloud is awesome. So I hopefully, Veronica, that answered your question. G Suite is a series of apps. G Suite is like, it's like a country club membership, but for productivity, not eating and golfing. It gives you access to all of those things. Let me see. I have 2 kids in 2 different grades sharing one very small workspace at home. What are the headphones you've got? Let me see if I can find them real quick. Let's see, I have so many of these things open. Let me go to my personal. I can actually tell you exactly what I bought because I can look at my Amazon. See how fast it'll go. They were like kid headphones with mic. They were these right here. That is actually the exact pair. Now, my son snapped that pretty quickly. So his have not lasted nearly as long as my daughter's have, but they worked fairly well. That was a question in the Q&A that I answered. All right, anything else? You guys have been so patient and so interactive. We really appreciate it. And if you want to come back and hang out with us at 3 p.m., we will do it all again. And we'd love to see you there. Have a great day, everybody.